to overcome the roadblock, the blunder built into the Ombudsman's legislation, which has led to a frustrated Ombudsman asking Senator Hanson-Young to ask questions and to get into a committee. There is now a very clear government and opposition vendetta on the Ombudsman, who is a decent, hard-working citizen and who is, no doubt about this, being pilloried, particularly by the government, because he's dared to criticise the Department of Immigration's own infraction of government norms in terms of looking after asylum seekers, when, for example, he's expressed alarm, to use his own words, about the incidents of self-harm, that is, people attempting to harm themselves or even commit suicide because of the atrocious circumstances that asylum seekers find themselves in Christmas Island and elsewhere in this country. He's also spoken out about the impossible workload of thousands of asylum seekers that he's expected to individually report on to government without an increase in resources. That means staff and wherewithal. What I plan to do is introduce legislation into the Parliament in 12 days' time when we resume, to give the Ombudsman the same access to the Accounts Committee that the National Auditor, the Auditor-General, has, so that there will be an avenue, a clear avenue for the Ombudsman in the future to be able to report not just on his or her work, but on the ability of the office to carry out added workload when it's given by government without added resources. I'm also have written to the President about the failure of the committee chair, Polly, night before last, to allow the Greens to put questions to the Ombudsman to deal with the real issue at stake here, which is that frustrating failure of the Ombudsman's legislation to give a proper avenue to report back to Parliament. But there you go. There's a lot of politics in this, and there's a lot of effort to suppress and to pillory the Ombudsman, and I'm just calling a spade on that. But talking about seeking blood, we have the blood oath of Tony Abbott that he will repeal the carbon package when he gets into office. And, it might require some spinal fluid when the time comes as well. He's got himself into a complete mess, and he's getting business more and more offside. And you can see that by senior business people referring to this opposition stand with nowhere to go as spooky and destabilising and frustrating. When it comes to the carbon farming initiative, which the opposition now says it will support, it's starting to lift pieces out of the package. This is the same carbon farming initiative which it opposed in the Parliament, and there was a lengthy debate in the Senate. The fact is that repealing the rest of the legislation means that the opposition is going to take millions of dollars, rip millions of dollars out of farming communities which want to invest in the carbon market in the future, because the government of a future government of this coalition would not provide for that market. And you're looking at a voluntary market price of $7 as against a carbon package price of $23. And when you look at that, you can see that the carbon farming initiative, which the opposition supports, is going to be is going to rob the bush of huge amounts of investment and money and potential and jobs before you get to the dismantling of the scheme nationally. We will take Tony Abbott on this. I've said this repeatedly all the way to the next election. He's put himself into this box. and he will have to explain to the Australian people why he would take such a bloody-minded approach in more ways than one to the future well-being of the business sector of the community, jobs, and all the potential that will be created by this package as it's established and becomes accepted by the community. We've seen just today in the Sydney Morning Herald that a new assessment shows that average householders are going to be even better off under the carbon package than was earlier thought. And we're talking here about hundreds of dollars a year better off. Remembering that Tony Abbott's alternative gives householders no compensation at all. It'll make them $1,300 a year worse off under his scheme by 2020 with no compensation. Wait till people get to see that what he wants to do is rob householders to pay polluters, and as well as robbing the business community of a great investment climate and farmers of their potential to really do well under the carbon farming initiative, which has been passed by Labor and the Greens and the Independents in this place.
Senator Brown, when you refer to a vendetta against Mr Asher from the major parties, are you referring to the fact that Mr Gray and Mr Watt have spoken to or about to speak to the Ombudsman?
No,
and don't you think that it's reasonable for them to do that, given that he's described his own behaviour as unwise?
He's described a glitch in what he did in giving the questions to Senator Hanson-Young, and he's apologised for that.
Yep.
But he's got a terrific record, and if there's any other person in this place who's made one mistake for which they should apologise, then they're above the norm, I can tell you. And no, I'm referring to a whole series of letters which has been released with the Freedom of Information request, where the Minister has been quite clearly, and his office have been trying to suppress the Ombudsman from his public criticism of the way in which asylum seekers coming to this country are treated.
Yeah, I've read those documents, and my reading of them, correct me if I'm wrong because maybe I've missed some of them, was that the Minister was calling him to account for inaccuracies in information he was putting out in his submission to the committee and also in a press release.
Well, I've had a very clear double and triple reading of them, and it's very clear that there's the Minister trying to silence the very forthright and justified criticism coming from the Ombudsman. So, different point of view there on that.
Senator Brown, is the independence of the office more important than one man? I mean, he's admitted what he did was he shouldn't have done it. It was unwise. Would it be for the integrity of the office?
Look, if you want to remember this: the questions he put were reasonable questions, which were not of a political nature, but which were about the wherewithal of his office. If you want infallibility, get the Pope. We're asking here for a Ombudsman who's a reasonable person, who's got the bigness to apologise when he's made a procedural mistake. But don't doubt for a minute. He is being hectored now by the big parties because they don't like his courage in speaking up about their failure of policy on asylum seekers. That's what this is about. It's not the Ombudsman becoming political, it's the big parties defending the indefensible when it comes to their failed asylum seeker policy.
But surely a boat was intercepted overnight. The government's just announced it's on its way to Christmas Island now. How quickly should they be moved out of the Christmas Island detention centre under the government's new approach to bridging visas and the rest of it?
Well, it's up to the government, which needs to adopt the Greens policy of processing asylum seekers on shore in mainland Australia and rapidly, and where possible having those people brought into the community. If they're not genuine asylum seekers, send them home. Senator Hanson-Young has all the answers to an acceptable policy for asylum seekers coming by boat to Australia in the legislation before the Senate. What the government and opposition need to do is back that legislation, get it through the Senate, so that we don't only have an administrative approach which is always going to have glitches, but we have a legislative approach, a parliamentary-backed approach, to bringing asylum seekers ashore in Australia and treating asylum seekers here as every comparable country around the world treats asylum seekers coming across their borders.
Is the government right to say the threat of the Malaysia plan did contribute to the fall in boat arrivals that the UNHCR has recorded?
Well, who knows? That's their opinion. But we've seen a whole pattern of changing numbers of boat arrivals, and no doubt events in Iraq, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, where many of the people coming to our shores at the moment have been evicted by the sheer threat to the safety of their families, dictate with a delay factor what happens in terms of boat people coming to Australia as much as anything.
Senator, when the Ombudsman contacted the Greens seeking the meeting and then having the meeting, did at any stage you think or suggest to him, mate, you might be better off putting out a press release than doing it this way, or did you not see the
No, I haven't. I haven't met with the Ombudsman. Senator Hanson-Young did, but he requested that the questions, the origin of the questions, remain secret, and we considered that and thought it was important that the questions go onto the public notice and that we would honour his request for secrecy, and that's what he's apologised for now.
Senator Alan Jones was talking to the press club today about food security. I know you have some strong views on this issue as well. Are you going to go along?
No, look, it's a lovely day out in the outside. Why would you spoil that in the way that you promote? But if you know, I hope he draws a crowd. A bit better crowd than he did last time he came to Canberra, and I hope he goes away a little bit more happy than he did last time when he blundered about people being blocked at the borders. Maybe he'll correct that while he's at the press club.
Do you back his stance against CSG?
Well, he's backing downs, and he understands this issue, and he's right on it. That's
the Queen's arrival today. You wished her good weather, I think, earlier, but what is the significance of this visit?
Look, I was talking with somebody about this morning. Whether you're a Republican, as I am, or not, he's an admirable person who you've got to take your hat off to, if not curtsy to. And I think that I'd also like to speak with His Royal Highness the Duke, who spoke out about the destruction of Lake Pedder right back at the in the early days of the which was an incident that led to the formation of the Greens. Credit given where it's due, and I think they'll get a very warm welcome here in Canberra and in Perth.
Senator, just on a comment you made before, and I understand the context, that I understand the spirit in which you made the comment about the Pope. You don't actually think he is infallible, do you?
No, but there's quite a bit of mythology in papal mystique, and I was just sort of outlining one of those that seems to persist.
Senator, having been a GP, have you got concerns about the new revelations about deals between the Pharmacy Guild and drug companies?
I, as a young doctor, was appalled at being... I went into this with an employer in Sydney, going off to the steakhouse, I forget what it was called at the time, something like that, and having doctors send back red wine because they didn't like the quality of it, all at a drug company's expense. I never went again. This is the connections between drug companies and doctors in pushing drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, is an ongoing alarming factor which needs to be dealt with. And I think the medical profession has a lot to answer for there and needs to do a lot better. It should stop. the very idea of drug companies paying for accommodation, for victualling, entertainment for doctors ought to end. Thanks everybody.
That's the Greens leader Bob Brown saying